welcome to a brand new episode of Pull Yourself to Pieces. I'm here, Bill, and my co-host, Ray.
Yeah, he dragged me here again. 38 of these things. I can't believe it. You got me to sit for 38 of these.
You are sitting?
I am sitting.
Do you
as,
ever try to do these lying down?
What? And as usual, I'm naked. Are you naked?
Oh, no. You did that in the early shows, didn't you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was naked. Just anybody who's listening, I'm naked.
Now, if you... Oh, boy.
No.
Naked and lying down.
Naked and lying down. No, that's...
I don't know if I could do the show
What?
lying down.
Why not?
Do you remember when
Why
we
couldn't you?
interviewed Brad? He said at one
Yeah.
point he was lying down on the couch
Yeah.
halfway
he got
through the interview.
He got comfortable. Can you blame him?
Well, that's good. We made him feel comfortable.
We made him feel comfortable. Yeah. Exactly.
So what's new with you?
A lot, but let's.
Oh, okay. That's
there's
for
a
another
lot
show.
new. That's
That's for the
another
after show.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't have an
We're
after
gonna-
show.
No,
We barely have a show.
we barely have a show, let alone an after show.
The Tim shows were great. I
Tim
hope a
shows
lot of
were
people
great.
liked those.
Tim shows were excellent.
Yeah.
I just found out today that he was at Woodstock. Okay,
He was at Woodstock, really.
he was at Woodstock.
Doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Are you sure he
So,
didn't go to the moon, too?
He was a stowaway.
He was-
Yeah, I was
Is that
able to
Tim?
sneak
What's
in.
he doing in there?
Yeah, I could imagine him going, yeah, I was able to sneak in and I got on board and I hid. And yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyhow, you know what I miss?
I can't imagine the world the way it used to be.
Well, besides that, I miss listening to the radio.
Oh, the radio. Oh, yeah.
You remember
that's
the
been replaced by
radio.
what we do, podcasts.
Yeah, no. Well, specifically, I miss music on the radio.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean. Not just talking.
You know, the stuff. that
even
we
on
grew-
TV, like if you, I don't know, you don't do TV, but I have, some of the channels through
Right.
streaming, like,
right.
like MTV and VH1, and they
Right.
really don't play, like,
No,
they don't play music like
no
they used
music
to.
anymore. No, that stopped years
Stupid
ago.
shows, reality shows, and
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
What started out as a great idea.
which thing?
Music videos set to
Yeah.
music, so you could actually see the performers.
Right.
Sometimes there was a story attached to whatever the lyrics were or the song was, or other times it would just be them performing. But yeah, what a great idea! And you really got to kind of know the artist a little bit more.
Right.
Some of them were very inventive and funny and great, and some were just downright crappy and stupid. But
Yeah.
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 you take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
So
But no, getting back to radio, you're right. I mean, radio, I don't even know. I mean, I have a radio in my car. I never listen to it.
no, neither do I. I stopped listening to the radio in the mid 90s.
That far back? Are you really?
That far back. Yeah,
Wow.
mid 90s I stopped listening to the radio.
So there's no song from like the last 20 years that you really care about.
Not a single one. No.
Wow.
Not a single one.
And what's funny, there are a handful, but I can't even think of the names of them or the artists to tell
Right.
you. That's how,
Right,
it's like,
exactly.
what's like gone is
What?
like bands.
Oh, bands. Yeah, bands. Exactly. Yeah. So I've basically been mourning the death of rock and roll for decades.
Oh, the death of
But-
rock and roll. That's interesting
so
to say that.
So I thought maybe we could maybe we could go back in time, you and me, and let's discuss. Yeah. Let's discuss what historians consider to be the very first rock and roll song.
Hmm.
Oh, are you ready?
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I can.
All right.
I can go up to a thing called the internet.
Oh, that you have that?
Yeah, we were on
I've
the
heard-
air, and
I've
we wouldn't be
heard-
on the
I've
air
heard-
if it wasn't for the internet.
I've
So-
heard about that internet.
Oh, yeah.
thing. Yeah. Sounds interesting.
So we use this thing, and we can
Yeah.
actually find out all kinds of information. A lot of
Okay.
mis and disinformation out there.
Missing this. Yeah.
Right, miss and dis.
Exactly.
And
All right. So the fact that I'm 64 and you're 59 and I guess a retired musician.
Yeah.
You were a disc jockey for quite some time.
Yes.
You made some
Right.
films, so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
and I we run the gamut when it comes to music, knowing a lot about it, and of course our mother was a singer. She sang with a big band. Um,
Sure.
so we're gonna attempt to interject our knowledge on this subject,
Oh, we are, huh?
and using the internet to either prove us right or wrong, we're going to march forward and see if we can't figure out the roots of rock and roll, or at least at this point, start with what is the very first rock and roll song considered by historians. All right,
Oh,
so now
okay. Well,
I have
I'm
heard
yeah.
I have heard numerous times that historians consider the song life could be a dream, shaboom shaboom,
Really?
is the first rock and roll song. And they point to the fact that a lot of songs previous to that didn't have that certain style or the right lyrics or the right arrangement or the right instruments to be called a
Right.
rock and roll song.
Right. Right.
And so that's what I had heard for the longest time. Life could be a dream. If you know the song, it doesn't sound like anything vaguely related to rock and roll, but you got to realize that this is in the early 50s when the song came out,
Right.
way before Bill Haley and the Comets, and way before um, Chuck Berry, and way before Jerry Lee Lewis. Um, this was a doo-wop group comprised of, I don't know if they're black or white. I couldn't even tell you. And I don't remember the name of the group either. Maybe you can figure that one out. Maybe when we get to that point, you'll be able to tell me the name of the group.
I'm looking up things
Uh,
as we speak,
yeah,
and
life could be a dream.
right. 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 I remember
Yeah,
the song. I know it.
and I used to know the name of the group, but I'm old and feeble now. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, I'll
so
tell you what's interesting is that how the term started. I'm
okay,
looking
I'm
up
listening.
on the term. The term "rockin' and rollin'" was kind of more of a maritime thing. Had to do with sailors and sailing and stuff like that.
Really,
Yeah, yeah,
all right, kind of makes sense. But how does it transfer to a music genre?
right. Had it exactly.
Right.
Well, what I'm seeing is that one of the very first times that the lyrics, right, where we actually hear the lyrics as a rock and roll,
Yeah,
is from
1930s.
we're gonna go to the 30s. Yeah,
Wow. So
yeah,
the first mention of rock and roll dates back to the 30s.
yeah,
Do they point to a specific song
yeah,
or a
yeah, yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah.
What song do they point at?
It's called "Rocket for Me," Ella
Ro-
Fitzgerald, Chuck
Ella
Webb,
Fitzgerald. Rocket.
1937,
Wait,
and the
so rocket
lyrics.
as in wait, hold on, back
Go
up.
ahead.
So R O C
Oh,
K.
Chick Webb, not Chuck Webb. Sorry, Chick Webb.
All right. So rocket for me. So ROCKIT for me.
Yes,
Okay. All right. Because
right.
otherwise it would be rocket, like ROCKET. So it's rocket for me. All right. Great. Sung by Ella Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
Does
And
it?
the lyrics actually go, every night you'll see all the nifties, plenty tight, swinging down the 50s. Now they're all through with symphony. Ho, 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 rocket for me. Now it's true that once upon a time, the opera was the thing, but today the rage is rhythm and rhyme. So won't you satisfy my soul with the rock and roll?
Wow.
Yeah.
What year?
37.
1937.
Yeah.
So the first inkling of the beginnings of rock and roll date back to 1937,
I would say, or at least lyrically.
or at least
Now,
lyrically.
right. I wouldn't
Right.
say musically, but
Right.
lyrically.
Because without hearing the song, we can't really make a determination.
Right.
And
Now,
we don't know what instruments were played on that song either.
now apparently in the 30s and going into the 40s, the term rock and rockin'
Yeah.
might have had some sexual innuendo. So there might have been some
you-
double entendre meaning for
you-
that having to do with
you think?
sex.
You think?
Yeah, well,
It's-
so instead of saying sex or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, you start saying rockin',
yeah, rocking. Yeah.
right?
If this van is rocking, don't come and knocking. Sure, it makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And you know what? Rockin' and rolling. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that could definitely sound like sex going on.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's done right. Yeah. You want to be kind of rocking and rolling. You know.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's 37. And then,
That's 37.
right. And then, now here's another thing too to think about is the fact of popularity. Right? That's what's going to determine what everyone's going to vote as is going to be like what they consider to be the first rock and roll song. If it's a certain song that says from 1940s, right? Let's say 45.
Right.
It's just because the majority of historians have focused on that particular song because of its popularity and its exposure. Doesn't mean that there might have been songs before that just didn't get the exposure that that song did. For example,
or
just the year-
by obscure artists who weren't that popular either.
right?
Like a lot of black artists back then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
So
in
con-
the
continue.
same year, I'm reading here that Benny Goodman, the song "Sing Sing Sing,"
Okay.
had certain kind of drum breaks and certain kind of drumming that predated rock and roll drumming. So it seems like it wasn't like just all of a sudden, but oh, here we go, this is it, the first one. It was a evolution.
A progression, a gradual
Yeah, like an
progression.
evolution going on. All
Okay.
right. A year later, I know
what
you know
year?
her. We talked about
46?
her, I don't know, even on the show or maybe outside. Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Right.
Right. She sang Rock Me in 38. Okay.
And she played a guitar, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
She played an electric
she was
guitar.
electric guitar. Yes. Woman was
Right.
way ahead of her time.
She played an electric guitar and she was a nun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And she probably did not get the respect or the exposure or the accolades that she should have gotten because of a lot of reasons. A woman, she
Well,
was black,
yeah,
she was
right.
a sister,
A
right?
nun,
I mean,
yeah. Right.
so we move forward, right?
Okay.
There's here and there to some other songs as we end up the 30s that, you know, have a little bit of that bluesy getting into this rock kind of a sound.
Right.
And we come into the 40s. Now I'm looking at, there's a lot of songs that, again, it seems a lot of them mention the drumming. The drumming sound seems to be where the evolution started in terms of the music. Maybe there might be a mention of rock or the words rock and roll, or the word rock is in the title. Rock Me
Right.
Mama was from 44.
Gene Krupa, that famous drummer Gene Krupa had a lot to do with moving rock forward with his drumming because he was he was the first rock drummer. Gene Krupa, he was. He played. I don't recall what big band he was associated with, but I have heard some of his drum solos, and they are absolutely fabulous. I mean, they are
really.
They are amazing, especially for the time. Again, I'm sure we're going to get to a few songs where he is the drummer on those as we progress forward. So what year are we on now?
I'm going to jump us to like the mid 40s.
Okay.
Because it seems that there's a lot of pointing to that song, That's All Right Mama.
That's All Right Mama.
Arthur Crudup, 46.
Right. Who Elvis later redid.
Yes, exactly.
And recorded at Sun Records, I believe, and recorded it as a present for his mother.
Yeah. A lot of people want to consider that as, in quoting this, ground zero for rock and roll.
Really? So there's some historians credit Elvis. Oh, no, not Elvis.
All Right Mama.
The original version of That's All Right Mama.
46 version.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
8 years later is when Elvis did.
Elvis. Does it? So
Yeah,
all
it's
right.
8
So
years
that
later.
so we're talking. So what year is this? That's all right, Mama.
It's
46.
46. Yeah.
So that easily predates my Life Could Be a Dream. Shaboom, shaboom.
Yeah.
So we're not even close to that yet.
Nope.
All right.
Nope.
All right. What else you got?
About 2 years later, there's a song called "Good Rockin' Tonight." Now, that if that's the same song I'm thinking that was remade later by who was that? "Good Rockin' Tonight." That's the same thing.
No, I think you're thinking of a different song. I think you're thinking of a Led Zeppelin remake,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't think
Okay.
it's the same. I don't. It
Yeah.
might not be the same song, but then again, it might be.
Yeah. Now, this "Good
Uh,
Rockin' Tonight," the lyrics obviously it says, "Well, I heard the news. There's good rockin' tonight."
Okay.
All right. This had like that boogie woogie piano in it,
Okay.
sax in it. It had
All
that
right.
drums that had that rock and roll kind of drum sound. There was
Okay.
hand
Right.
claps.
Okay.
So this was definitely, you know,
Mm,
on the same path towards more commercial and more popular.
all right.
But I
Does
never
it
heard of
say
it.
whether?
Good Rockin'
Does it say
Tonight with Noah
uh,
E. Harris. Pff, never heard of that.
a black group or a white group? Does it say?
Oh, R&B artist.
Okay.
Yep.
Most likely black. All right.
Yep. Yep. And now
All right.
a year later, we get "Rock This
What?
Joint,"
All
Jimmy
right. What
Preston
year?
and the Prestonians.
What year are we at?
49.
We're at 1949, a year
Right.
before 950 hits, and we have another song. What's this called?
It's called "Rock This Joint."
Rock This Joint. Wow.
And what this song has, Ray, that's different than the other ones, this has a lot of shouts, screamings, like, that kind of thing.
Oh, like a night at your house? Just another night at your house. Okay. All right. So,
guess
shouts.
what? You ready for this?
Yeah. What?
It's 1949, right?
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
lyrics in this song that
Yeah.
go, "We're gonna rock, we're gonna rock." Doesn't that sound familiar for something that comes
Yeah.
out about 6 years later?
Yeah. We're gonna rock. We're gonna.
Yeah,
well,
we're gonna.
well, yeah. Rock
Yeah.
around the clock.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We're
Yeah.
gonna rock around the clock tonight.
In
We're
fact,
gonna rock, rock. Yeah.
I'm reading here that Billy Haley and the Comets
Yeah.
in 52, they did a arrangement of "Rock This Joint." How do you like that?
Ah.
Uh-huh.
Interesting. Okay.
So the guys who start really going on the map, right? Heavily, like
Right.
Chuck Berry, I'm sorry, not Chuck Berry, Billy Haley later.
Right.
I mean, we get to the 50s. Those guys are definitely stealing songs from these R&B guys from the 40s,
It's been done for years.
right?
Oh, it's been done for years.
I know.
Yes. Yes. Elvis was the biggest thief of all when it came to stealing R&B and blues songs. And Elvis is the king. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the king stole so much material to get where he was. All right, so 1949.
What year
so
was
let's-
your "Life Is But a Dream"? Do you know? Early
Life is
50s.
but a dream. It's in the 50s somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to be early 50s.
I'm going to guess and say 54.
Okay. All right. To close out the 40s, I have
Yeah.
to include a song here called "Saturday Night Fish Fry." Louis Jordan and the Timpani Five.
Wow. Okay.
This apparently was a hit. It had like that jump and jive kind of sound.
Okay, right. Right.
It had electric guitar riffs. It definitely had like pre-Chuck Berry stuff.
All right. Piano.
Right? Yeah. And then we got to go to what I've been reading now. Now, I always thought the first rock and roll song was "Rock Around the Clock." It's just my ignorance, just thinking,
Okay.
"Rock Around the Clock." That's got to be it, right?
Okay.
But 4 years before that, we have a song that I'm seeing it everywhere. The historians seem to really be focusing in on this song being the first rock and roll song.
Okay.
It's called "Rocket 88." It's Jackie Brenston and his Delta Cats.
Cool.
Now, this song has a lot of history. This song This song, if I'm correct, this is the song that I think was written by Ike Turner.
Really? It had to be a young Ike Turner.
Right, sure, of course. Um, yeah.
Does this
No,
qualify as dead air?
I
We know about
lost
that.
my
We know
spot
about that,
for a
don't we?
minute here.
You lost your spot.
Well, I had been reading a
Yeah.
whole thing about Ike Turner writing a song, and I thought that was the song.
All right.
Hold on. Okay, yes, here we go. I was right. 1951's Rocket 88, written by Ike
Okay.
Turner.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
this was recorded by Sam Phillips. You know the name?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Sun
Yes,
Records. Elvis
we know
Presley.
Sam Phillips. Yes.
Right. So Rocket 88 is considered like the first rock and roll song by
Does
historians.
Does Ike Turner actually play on the song, or did he just write it? Or you don't know at this point?
I'm looking right now. I think he just wrote it.
Okay.
I
All right.
think
So
he
we've
just
got
wrote it.
we've got an obscure band.
Yep.
Playing this song. It was recorded. Did it get released? And did it get radio play?
That's a good question. That is a very good question.
Because like that old saying, if a tree falls in the woods, if nobody's there, does it make a sound? I mean, if nobody heard this song, then does it count?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's what I meant when I said earlier about popularity and what actually had success.
Okay.
Right? I guess the historians, they're not looking at the charting or if it actually sold any records. They're looking at what was recorded as the first rock and roll song. Although it's got to be the whole package, in my opinion, right? We just mentioned some things where the lyrics mentioned rock and roll, the music started to sound like rock and roll. If Rocket 88 finally put all that together, then I'm voting for that one.
Okay.
I can definitely go and agree with that and say, okay, right, this is it. This was the song.
All right.
51.
Right. Without actually hearing the song.
Right.
Now, is there a link? With what you're saying, is there a link to actually play a little bit of the song, or no? Is there no link for that?
Probably not the one I'm looking at right here, but probably. I mean, Rocket 88 is all over the place.
Okay,
it's all over the place.
All right. Let's.
And again, there's going to be historians who are going to debate that and say, oh,
All right. All right. Let's keep moving forward. What else you got?
Okay.
So that's a real good contender.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
And we're at 80. We're at 81.
What?
All right, we're at 51. Sorry,
I was going to say
88, 81. I got confused.
Okay. All right. So we're at 1951. What's up next? Do we get to what's coming up next? What's a memorable or at least a very popular song that we should all know, that we could all go, oh yeah, we know that song. That's a good contender.
Right.
What do you got?
Right.
What do you got?
The next songs that are mentioned as far as historically would be How Many More Years, also in 51. Never heard of it. Cry,
Nope.
Johnny Ray, 51.
Oh, Johnny Ray, Cry?
Yeah.
They think that's a rock song?
Yep. It's in there as
that's
really
more of a ballad than anything else.
How about Do You Know Rock and Roll Blues, Anita O'Day, 52?
Never heard it.
Yeah, me either.
But I wasn't around then.
Okay, now in 52, there's also Hound Dog, but I'm not sure if it's the same.
No, it can't be.
Right.
No, it is. It is, but obviously Elvis, did his version of it.
Yeah.
So does it say the name of the group or artist that did that Hound Dog recording?
Yeah. Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton. Oh, it was a woman.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, she recorded this song called Hound Dog. R&B song.
Okay.
Yep. That same year, Love My Baby. which apparently was recorded later by Elvis. Still, none of these were, I think, big, right?
No.
I mean,
No, I don't think so.
now we're up to 54, and we got the doo-wop.
Okay.
G by the Crows. You ever heard of that?
Nope.
Me either.
Nope.
All right, 53. Billy Haley and the Comets come out with Crazy Man Crazy.
Crazy Man Crazy. I've heard that song.
It was the first of their recordings to get on the Billboard charts.
Okay.
Oh, and some describe it as the first rock and roll song to be a hit on the pop charts.
Aha.
Crazy Man Crazy, the first one to chart.
Okay.
This is the first one to hit the pop charts.
Okay.
So that's interesting.
Yes.
That's something to be logged in the books for.
Yeah.
Crazy Man Crazy, Bill Haley in 53.
Okay.
And it's still 2 years before we get to Rock Around the Clock.
All right.
Ray Charles records Mess Around in 53.
Interesting.
I don't know the song.
Neither do I.
Yeah. 54. Work With Me, Annie. Hank Ballard and the Midnighters. Sound familiar?
No.
The R&B market. Yeah, again, I don't know if it even hit the pop charts. 54. We all know this one, but it wasn't it's the original though. It's Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Okay.
Big Joe Turner, 54.
All right.
Later covered that same year later
Right.
by Billy Haley and the Comets. I didn't realize that Shake, Rattle, and Roll came out before Rock Around the Clock. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, so these are definitely, my opinion, rock and roll songs. Yes?
Yeah.
Shake, Rattle, and
Absolutely.
Roll? Definitely.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No.
So 54, we're already now charting other rock and roll songs on the pop charts.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, you've got Bill Haley. You've got electric guitar. You've got you've got a saxophone. You've got some good drumming.
Right.
Great lyrics.
Yeah.
The songs are fast. They move. Definitely, I think and they're not rockabilly songs either, because you could easily get confused between rock and roll and rockabilly.
Right.
So yeah, okay, keep going.
Well, we not too long after that, they Bill Haley did Rock Around the Clock, was released in 55, was a huge success.
Right.
And from there, there's not any more. We're not looking at any more contenders for first. We're into the rock and roll era now.
Okay.
Yeah, rock and roll era has already officially started, in my opinion.
Okay, so rock and roll.
Yeah, but like I said, as far as the first mention of rock and roll and lyrics, we had 37, right? With that Ella Fitzgerald.
Right.
And then you got that 46 where we had the drumming sounds of stuff. Was what was that again? What was that?
Benny, not Benny Goodman.
Not Good Rockin' Tonight. Was that?
No. Rocket 88, was that the one?
No. Rocket 88 wasn't until 51.
All right. So yeah.
But your key big ones are going to be
okay. Was there a mention of Life Could Be a Dream? I think it's the Crew Cuts. I think it was the Crew Cuts. No, not mentioned at all.
I'm not seeing it.
Interesting. All right. Yeah. So we're now in rock and roll. And
definitely.
We have a lot of black artists.
Yeah.
Doing rock and roll.
Sure.
We have Jerry Lee Lewis comes on the scene.
You got Jerry Lee Lewis. You got Little Richard. You got Chuck Berry.
Elvis appears. Appears. He
Yep.
starts doing some rock and roll.
Yep.
And at this point, we don't have, we're just nearing 1960.
Well, yeah, right. As we kind of go along, you got as we get later in there, you got Buddy Holly, right?
Right, Buddy. Yeah, but that's more rockabilly.
Okay.
But here's the thing. This is interesting, because this is where some new artists, let's say, join the bandwagon and basically create their own style of music based on what they like. So Buddy Holly basically mixes country music with rock and roll, and that's how you get rockabilly. You get that southern
Yeah.
twangy, you get that southern twangy sound,
Right.
and simple three-piece, three guys making music. Um,
Yeah.
some people will consider the songs rock and roll, and other people, look, we actually built a genre for him, okay, and some other artists that do rockabilly. It's been said that Bo Diddley did rockabilly.
Yeah.
Besides the blues. Okay, so now we're into let's say we're into 1960.
Actually, reading here that some say that Elvis had a lot to do with rockabilly. Rockabilly.
Okay. All right. Rockabilly. All right.
Yeah, rockabilly.
Elvis with rockabilly. All right.
Yeah.
And so we've got the basis now for rock and roll.
Yeah,
And
because
so I'm not too keen on what happens between 1960 and 1964. All I know is that there are 4 guys in Liverpool that love American music. They're big Buddy Holly fans, they're big blues fans,
right.
and they are basically playing cover versions of American songs over in England, and that's how they start, by doing cover versions.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
what would you consider all the West Coast stuff? Because that's as early as 62.
West Coast stuff. So
Yeah.
we're talking West
Beach
Coast.
Boys.
Beach. Well, no, that's not 62.
Oh, it's not.
I don't. No, I think the Beach Boys are considerably later than that.
Are you sure?
I'm almost positive the Beach Boys did not come on the scene in 62. I believe they've come on the scene around 64, 65. If they were on the scene in 62, they weren't famous yet.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean,
well, now you got me going to check that out.
And then, and then you've got, and so here's another thing. So this is where we see rock and roll start to splinter, depending on where you are,
right,
and what your influences are. So yeah, now you've got beach music. Okay, that's what we call beach music, right?
Right.
Rock and roll now splinters into stuff that the Beach Boys do, and then as we progress into 64 and 65, we had the British invasion. And all of a sudden, everything changes. Everything changes.
So I just checked, and it turns out that the Beach Boys did come out in 62.
Really? What was it?
Surfin' Safari.
Surfin' Safari in 62. I stand corrected.
Yeah, Surfin' USA, 63. Those are rockin' songs.
Those are rockin' songs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they came out that early.
So
okay.
It was just obviously still an influence of the stuff that was in the 50s, in my opinion.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah,
the popularity of the Billy Haley stuff and the Elvis stuff, that definitely led to the Beach Boys stuff. And that's where you said you weren't sure about the 60 to 64 point. It's obviously stuff like that,
Right.
It's only that, like, at the same time we still had doo-wop, right? We still had that kind of sound going.
We had doo-wop that was happening in New York.
Okay.
In the 50s.
That's the New York side.
Right, the New York sound. You've got
you got Four Seasons.
You got the Four Seasons.
That type of stuff.
You've
got
and
that's definitely rock and roll.
Yeah, again, but it has its own name. It has its own genre. It's doo-wop. So it's rock and roll, but it's a different sound.
There's a lot more a cappella stuff going on.
Right.
It seems like it's
vocal driven.
The guitars that were happening for the that rock and the early electrical guitar type of thing sort of takes like a step back in some of that stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Not so much in the southern stuff, the western stuff, the Beach Boys stuff. You hear in the guitars, but you don't seem to hear the guitars in the Four Seasons.
No, in the doo-wop. No, and same thing with like "Run Around Sue," and those songs.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
The Wanderer. Right. You've got a lot of songs. You got a lot of groups that look. Doo-wop started because you had a bunch of guys that liked to sing but couldn't afford instruments, so they would just use their voices as the background.
Right.
And
it's rock and roll minus the, I guess, the rock part.
Yeah. Right. but we're
Read that
focused
up.
on rock and roll. I mean, there's R&B still, So now we've got genres that are basically running parallel, right? We've got R&B that's still moving with other bands,
Sure.
other groups, right? With R&B,
Sure.
and we have rock, and then all of a sudden we have the British invasion. So now we have British rock, and then we have all the offshoots of that, all the bands that we now know from England, and then all of a sudden we hit 65, 66, and now we've got the bands coming out of California like
Yes.
the Turtles,
Yes.
and the Birds, and the
Yes.
Mamas and the Papas,
Yes.
and
Jefferson Airplane.
All
right? That kind of stuff. Yep.
We've got that genre of what's called mellow rock, right? It's more.
Well, I don't know. Who did you mention again? Let me look that up.
I would say the Mamas and the Papas, the Birds, the Turtles, Lovin' Spoonful. I mean, that's
I see where you're going with all that.
Country
American
rock.
folk rock. You know who we forgot to mention? We forgot to mention Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan.
Exactly. Bob Dylan definitely led to a lot of that stuff happening.
Yes, right.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Got to give Bob credit for that.
So now
because Bob was as early as 62 or maybe even earlier. So
yes, well, he's been around for a while.
Yeah, so he definitely was an early influencer on that folk rock.
Yeah.
Folk rock. Let's put it that way.
Yes,
because that's where you're going to have all those ones you're talking about. You're going to have the Mamas and Papas.
Yes.
You're going to have stuff on East Coast and West Coast.
Yes.
So, yep.
Exactly right.
Yep.
So now we're up around 66, 67, and now we
hear you're in the mid 60s going on your way up. There's
the Doors.
Yeah. There's a second British invasion, right? Isn't there a second British invasion?
I don't know.
You never considered it that?
I just think it was constant.
Huh.
I think once we got a whiff of the songs and the stuff that was coming out of England, it just kept coming. People just wanted to hear it.
Let me see what they say. Second British invasion. Oh, you're right. You're right. It just kept coming. It got more psychedelic.
Right.
It got got more harder.
Yes.
But it was the England stuff was still that, and so was the American stuff too.
Yeah.
So
Strawberry Alarm
the second British invasion, by the way, is not until 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With punk, but we haven't gotten that far
punk
yet.
Was there, but
yeah.
But it's like they took punk and they mixed it. They kind of lukewarmed it a little bit and had your new wavy kind of new rock.
Well,
new rock.
Jumping ahead. You're
new
jumping
rock.
ahead. You're jumping ahead too fast.
No, I didn't mean to, but I'm just saying that
I
screwed that up. Sorry.
All right. So now we're getting to the late 80s, and we're in 68, 69, and we're starting to hear of these bands that were influenced a lot by the blues, and some of these bands are very famous, like Led Zeppelin.
Oh yeah.
And we have bands named Pink Floyd. We have bands that are up and coming called Deep Purple.
So you didn't think the Motown was any kind of rock and roll? That was all. To me, that's still got elements of rock and roll in there.
It has elements of rock and roll, but it's still. I think it's still R&B based. Now there were a couple of groups that did cross over. There were a couple of R&B groups that did, like the Isley Brothers. Okay, Isley Brothers crossed over, and that lady. Who's that lady? That's a rock and roll song.
Mm-hmm. Shout.
I don't care what anybody says. Shout could be a rock and roll song.
Sure, it's got all the elements for it.
Yes, it has the elements for it, right? And then, of course, you've got a lot of these American bands popping up. You've got Tommy James and the Shondells,
right.
Like songs like "Mony Mony." Those are rock songs.
Oh yeah, anthem. That's an anthem rock song.
That's an anthem right there.
Oh yeah,
right. And then you move into the 70s, and all of a sudden, you get this influx of, I'm going to say, R&B and folk music and
experimental.
Experimental.
Yes.
From the 70s.
Right. Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Groups like Traffic.
Yes.
And Yes.
Oh, and Santana and
Oh my gosh, yeah, okay. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. All
oh,
right,
because we also skipped somebody, by the way.
Latin music. Who'd we skip?
But we
We
skipped
skipped.
somebody before that. We skipped
We skipped a lot.
well, we skipped the guitarist. What's his name?
Which guitarist?
The
There's
one who
plenty of them.
died young. Help me
Jimi
out here.
Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix.
Hey Joe, Jimi Hendrix. Thank you.
Jimi Hendrix. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Psychedelic.
Yes,
Hard.
it's
Hard.
true. It was was part of
Hard
psychedelic.
/ psychedelic.
Yes.
I mean, there were only a few. There were only a few. Cream. All right. You talk hard rock.
Yes.
Cream. Eric
the
Clapton.
early Clapton stuff. Yes, you're
early
right.
Clapton stuff coming into his own.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden comes 70, 71, and all of a sudden rock and roll branches out into this lollipop stuff.
Well, I know what you're saying, and I mostly agree with you. I would say that it kind of got it's a split, like you said.
It splits. It starts to split.
It's almost like you wonder how things like Sugar and those kind of songs.
Oh, the Monkees. How about the Monkees? Those songs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm looking at. Let's look at early Elton John, right? Early Elton John.
Yeah.
The guy was a rocker. I mean, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting.
Yes, but at the same time was also songs like
right, Tiny Dancer.
Yeah.
Right. Your Song.
Your Song.
I mean,
that was one of the first ones. Right.
The guy
Song.
was able to mix ballads and rock and roll in the very beginning, quite well, and I think that opened the door for a whole new genre. Let's look at Billy Joel. Billy Joel is basically an Elton John clone. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Those two, they have very, very similar songs and very similar styles.
Agreed.
And now you have a lot of single artists coming out that hire bands with the same type of sound. All the while, you still have bands that are still going strong. Like you still have Led Zeppelin going strong. You still have Grand Funk Railroad going strong.
Sure.
Deep Purple is going strong. Sure. A lot of those bands from England, they're still going strong.
The Rolling Stones were still going.
Yet. Rolling Stones is still going.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden,
the Who was still going.
The Who still going strong.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, majorly.
Yep.
And then now you get into 72, 73, and all of a sudden we get hit with these one-hit wonders. Okay.
Yeah.
These bands that come together to do one song.
Right.
And some of them songs are good, and some of them are absolute crap.
Yeah.
But you got to think of the times that we were in.
What do you consider songs like bands like the Grassroots? What do you consider that? Blue Eyed Soul?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there you go. Thank you for bringing that up.
Three Dog Night.
Another splinter of rock and roll, where rock and roll splinters off. So you've got the Walker Brothers. You've got exactly.
Three Dog Night.
The Grassroots. Guess Who?
Yep.
Yes. Three Dog Night.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Blue Eyed Soul, absolutely.
Yeah.
Another a slightly mellower rock, more melodic. Has a lot more. Oh, but Tommy James, put Tommy James in there with that genre too. Blue Eyed Soul, yes. So again, you're seeing rock kind of splinter now into these tiny little
in that early 70s point. Still,
in the early 70s point, splinter, and all of a sudden you get to 75, 76, and all of a sudden. We have
the strangest things happen.
The strange things happen.
Yeah, I know where you're going with, right? You're going to go with what? Boston?
Oh, well, I could say Boston, but you've got bands all of a sudden show up out of nowhere like Thin Lizzy.
Okay, gotcha.
Aerosmith.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Those guys were starting to come out in the early 70s, but then just kind of really grew.
They didn't get Queen. All right, Queen.
Queen, so Queen was 71 or whatever it was, 70. But you're right. By the time we get to the mid 70s,
I like to call this the second wave of rock.
Interesting.
I call that the second wave of rock because we were introduced to a lot of good rock and roll bands in the 70s, in the early 70s.
Yeah.
And some of them lasted.
What Meatloaf did? You're almost around the same year.
Oh my gosh.
And Heart. Heart
did
some pretty interesting stuff. The early Heart stuff.
Yes, exactly. So now we're up
It's
into
all around that same time.
75.
You're all around 75, 76.
Yeah, 75, 76. I
And
remember.
by the way, in that time, it's already out. You already have the roots of punk. It's already out.
Yeah,
The
starting.
who are the guys from
Sex
New York?
Pistols?
Well, yeah, that's in England, but who's the guys here?
Ramones.
The Ramones.
The Ramones.
Right. You already got those guys out, and you already have. And you already have the B-52s out already.
No.
Yeah, no, B-52s go back as early mid 70s.
Really?
Yeah, I'm gonna go look it up right now.
I didn't know that.
You didn't think that, did you?
No, I remember Journey. I remember hearing Journey.
Well, yeah, that's still like American rock and roll. That's
American
true.
rock, right?
I thought they were a little bit later 70s, but
Right.
B-52s go back as early as 76.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So now we're splintering off into what would you call that, alternative music at this point?
Yes.
B-52s type
Yes.
stuff, and
Yeah.
then what, in 79 Blondie comes on the
Yeah,
scene.
right, exactly. It's
And
the
Elvis
beginning
Costello.
of it's like it's the beginning of like that what I consider like new rock. It's also considered, like
Alternative.
like a punk variation, alternative rock.
Right. Right.
Yeah, new wave. There's all
yeah,
you talk about, you
Elvis
mentioned about
Costello.
splintering. They're all
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
splinters in there.
Joe Jackson,
Yes.
that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get into and all of a sudden
the police.
the police. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah.
So while all this is happening, something sneaks in out of nowhere called disco. And
Well, disco snuck in the middle. They say that's a whole other thing you and I could talk about, the beginning of disco. They go back as far as Dance to the Music, believe it or not. Sly and the Family
really,
Stone.
they think Dance to the
Yeah,
Music
they think
is
they
disco?
actually think that's the first disco song, even though it wasn't officially called disco, but it had
Wow.
the sound of disco. And then you get
That's
to Rock Your Baby. Rock Your Baby is like
George
like,
McRae. Okay.
that's 74, by the way, before The Hustle, before
Well,
Donna Summer comes out. It's
right.
before that.
And,
So that
and you got
yes.
Barry White, but
Right.
you've also got Barry White jumps
This
on
stuff
the
is
scene,
not
too.
rock. I don't know
No,
what
it's
it
not.
is.
It's-
This goes
it's not-
weird.
It's not rock. It's
Nope.
let's just call it R&B on steroids. Let's call it that.
There you go. I like that.
Let's call it the evolution of R&B.
Yeah.
Because obviously R&B, morphed into disco.
Yes. And
R&B
and-
took
and
R&B
then
took
disco kind of branched into rap and into what they call hip hop. But that's a whole
Yes.
other thing.
That's a whole other thing. But
Yeah.
so we're still in the late 70s here now.
Yes.
We're about to turn the page into the 80s.
Right.
And some of the bands that were making great rock and roll music are now, by that point, they're no longer together.
Like who?
Like Deep Purple, they're no longer together come
Oh, okay.
1980, and Grand Funk are no longer together.
Yeah.
And you've got these new bands that are popping up now out of nowhere, and they are
Right.
you've got Twisted Sister pops up, a hair band, let's call it. All of a sudden we see the emergence
Oh,
of
yeah, the hair bands. Not the
hair
whole-
bands.
yeah, the whole-
Okay,
yeah.
you've got these bands that come together like Motley Crue and Rat and all these other bands that
Yes.
they take rock and roll music and you know who we forgot?
Well,
We
it's
forgot 'em.
funny. You mentioned
You know,
you came into the 80s.
I left.
It's funny that
go back. I left out a pioneer.
oh,
I mean, I completely left out a pioneer for a whole genre of music that he started, and he was the first. Alice Cooper. Shock
okay.
rock.
That's
Shock
around the
rock.
mid
I mean-
mid to early 70s, right?
Early 70s, yeah,
Right.
72, I believe. Schools Out came out in 72, but his first album, Alice Cooper's first album, came out in 1970.
Uh-huh.
Love It to Death with 18 is one of the cuts on that song. So now you've got this shock rock genre comes out,
Yeah.
and if you'll notice, we've got a few artists that fall into that category. Think about Ozzy Osbourne falls into that category. Shock
Yes.
rock.
Yeah, shock
I mean,
rock, heavy metal. You
Right.
mentioned the glam rock.
Yeah.
They call that stuff too.
Glam rock,
Yeah,
right?
glam rock. Yeah.
I think that was more in the 80s though, but I think Alice definitely gets an
Well,
honorable mention
oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
for shock rock. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a stage show. I mean, the music was great, but
Oh,
you
Ozzy
went to see
Osbourne.
the Ozzy Osbourne,
Black Sabbath.
Black
That's all that
Sabbath.
stuff. That's all that shock rock.
Yep.
Yep. He's
All right.
by the way, Alice Cooper's considered the godfather of shock rock, by the way, you mentioned that.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I'm
without
looking
a
up right
doubt.
now. Yep.
Yeah. I'm certain.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep.
Very interesting.
All right. So now we're into the 80s, and we've
Yeah,
got
we've been
a whole
51 minutes into the show.
we've got a whole bunch of things going on, right?
crap.
We've got
Oh boy.
We've got punk, we've got new wave, we've
Right.
got alternative. We
Right.
have techno music coming out where people it's not a band, it's just one guy playing a synthesizer. Right?
Yeah, true.
We've got we've got we've
But
got,
look what happened from the beginning of this. We started out and we called it rock and roll. And
Right.
now it's not rock and roll anymore. At
It's
some
not-
point it became rock music.
right.
It became
Rock
rock
music.
music.
It became rock music. And at some
Which meant
point
it could have been anything from blues favored rock to folk rock, country rock, southern rock.
Right. Yes, country
Right?
rock. We haven't even talked about country rock, and I'm going back into the 70s. I'm going back to Marshall Tucker. I'm going
Yeah.
back to Charlie Daniels.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
going
hard to
back
cover
Lynyrd
everything.
Skynyrd. Right.
Because all the splintering that happens and all the influences of the rock mixing with country music or rock
Right.
mixing with
Yeah.
jazz music.
Jazz.
Right.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Tower of Power. You're talking rock. You talk Steely Dan.
Herbie Hancock.
Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
Steely Dan.
How about what do you
Um,
consider some of the stuff? I mean, it's all Stevie Wonder.
Oh, Stevie Wonder. You know, that's the great thing about Stevie Wonder. He's dipped his foot into so many
So much.
different
Right.
so many different things. I still think he's definitely the big
R-
one of the biggest influence in R&B.
Okay.
I mean, without a doubt.
Okay.
I don't think you can actually point your finger at any single rock song that he's done, but
I see what you mean. It's just I got you.
Yeah,
The drums and the
Right.
guitar stuff, the electric
Right.
guitar stuff is just not there. It's
Right.
It's not.
Right.
It's not forefront.
right. He stayed in his genre. He
Not in the
didn't change.
forefront.
Right.
Gotcha.
He stayed in his genre. Now, you know who I was so sad that didn't stay in their genre was Queen, because when I first heard Queen and it was their first album, this
hard
is
stuff.
early 70s,
Right.
it was hard rock
stuff.
and stuff.
Right.
And that's the type of stuff I absolutely love. But
Right.
when Queen finally went commercial and started with the disco stuff, and that's when they, and all the ballads. And I understand what Freddie was going through, facing death and everything, but
Right.
I couldn't listen anymore because they had turned into this band that was just too syrupy for me, and
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, I stopped listening to the radio in the mid 90s.
In the mid 90s, but we're in the 80s right now. Where
We're in
there's
the
such a mixture of
mid-80s.
there's new wave and there's that alternate rock. We're pre what you and I both know is what I don't know. I'm wondering where you consider. You said the death of rock. I think you mentioned that earlier in the show, and I'm guessing we're going to get to that at some point. But so we haven't reached the death of rock yet in the 80s.
No, we're close in
We're
my
close.
opinion.
Gotcha.
We're close in my opinion.
Right.
All of a sudden grunge comes on this.
Well, there you go.
Grunge.
The end of the
Grunge-
80s and the beginning of the 90s is
Right.
grunge. Agreed.
Grunge.
It was definitely an answer, in my opinion. Grunge was definitely an answer
Right.
to an alternative to what was the current heavy metal or the new wave. It was definitely like, we need a different kind of sound, and
Yeah.
the music
thing-
it's
same
really
thing
kind of
with-
the music and the vocals is just kind of like way more emotional, way more
Oh
trauma.
yeah, emo. It's all emo stuff.
Yeah.
It's all meant to
Yeah.
make you cry.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, and then you've got these great bands that pop up very quickly and disappear, like Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins. We start to see these guys in the 90s emerge.
Oh yeah. There's a ton of them.
And
Stone Temple Pilots,
Stone-
Alice in
oh, my
Chains,
gosh.
Soundgarden, Pearl Jam. Now these
Right.
guys don't all just disappear. Nirvana, they don't all just disappear. They still carry on.
Right.
Because grunge is probably still around today, but it's not grunge anymore.
It's not grunge anymore.
No, it became became something else.
So
I think.
when I couldn't hear a song that sounded like "Move It On Over"
Yeah.
from George Thorogood, which is a great what I call rock song, one of the
Uh-huh.
best rock songs ever. "Move It On Over." When I no longer could hear a song like that on the radio, to me, rock and roll had died. And
So where are you?
I
That's in the
I'm gonna say
somewhere
mid '90s.
yeah.
I was actually still listening to some of the stuff that was on the radio, like like Stone Temple Pilots, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Black Hole Sun.
Yeah.
Interesting song. I really
Right.
like the arrangement in that song.
Musically, yes.
But
We can't take anything away from some of the music. I mean,
right,
Foo Fighters. No,
Foo
actually,
Fighters.
I shouldn't say that. Foo Fighters were later. There's a thing
Yeah.
called I didn't even know it's a thing called post grunge, and that's like groups like Nickelback,
Oh gosh.
Creed.
Yeah. All right. Now you're getting into
Those
the stuff that I absolutely cannot stand.
Foo
And
Fighters were
that's
pretty good. There was
Foo
there's a
Fighters
lot of
were okay.
what?
Foo Fighters were okay.
I agree. They were okay.
They were okay.
They were okay.
But
Yeah.
some of these other groups you just mentioned, I could not listen. I
No,
just
I know what
could
you
not
mean.
listen.
Yeah.
It was just horrible.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
yeah.
And then very very soon you get into this death metal stuff.
Oh, I don't know.
This
Yeah, where that
death metal
spun
is
out.
it's just a lot of grunting. I
Yeah.
mean, seriously? Yeah,
Yeah.
just you totally
Yeah, but
lost
music was already rock and roll was already dead for you at that point.
rock. Yeah, rock had died by that point.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize it anymore. It had splintered so badly and it got so watered down and so twisted that I didn't recognize it anymore. So what did I do? I went backwards.
Oh,
I literally went backwards and I
Really?
started, and this is when you could actually go to a store and buy a CD
yeah.
because you can't do that anymore. You can't buy
Right.
CDs anymore because no
Right.
stores sell them.
Right.
So I would go to the store and I would look for early Sinatra stuff and I would look for Tony Bennett
Oh, that
stuff
kind of stuff.
and I would look for Bobby Darin stuff that I grew up with. Stuff that our mom played in the house when I was
Yeah,
a kid, and I
sure.
would go find some Sam Cooke stuff. And so I reverted all the way back and then slowly started to work my way
A
forward again.
Pure sign that you became your own parent.
I absolutely did. I absolutely did. You're right. I became my own parent.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
Hey, you know
So,
what? It's
what?
all a matter of opinion. But the
Oh,
music changed so much. I left DJing because of that. The music changed so much. You tuned it right off. You know, you were
yep.
done with
I
it. You
tuned
wrote
it
it
out.
off. You were
Yeah.
done with it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
here we
No.
are, 20 years past the 90s, and
Yep.
I don't know any bands or care about
No.
them.
I just recently saw the Billboard Top 20 songs.
Yeah,
I just recently saw the list.
right,
And I knew no one,
right.
and I didn't know any of the songs.
Yeah.
I've missed whole generations of singers. Well, let's call them artists. I have
Yeah.
no idea who they are, what they sound like. Because again, when you stop listening to the radio and you don't buy this stuff, you
Right.
don't know.
It might be in my opinion, but the last 20 years, the music has gotten extremely weak. Those songs that are going to be on the pop charts now, just horrible. I just
Yeah.
real
No,
weak,
they're
really weak,
well,
weak musically, weak lyrically, weak.
mediocre. The music today is
Yeah.
mediocre.
Yeah.
It's every singer has to be what's that machine where
Auto
they
tuned.
right.
Oh,
Nobody can hit a note anymore
Nope.
on their own.
Yep.
We have some singers still, Michael Bublé, and we still have some singers that sing traditional what's called jazz and standards.
Right.
No, they still have their niche, and they have a following. I mean, look! Oh my gosh, look at what Rod Stewart did when he
Yes,
decided
right,
to do some
right.
classics. He turned a whole
Right.
generation.
Brian's what's his name?
Brian
Setzer?
Setzer, the
Setzer,
Brian Setzer Orchestra. Now
Right.
that's going back to the '90s, though. I mean, he's
Right. That's true. You're right.
he left the Stray Cats, which was
Right.
an incredible rockabilly group.
Yeah.
All right, amazing.
Yeah.
Short-lived though; they weren't
Yeah,
around that
that's
long.
true. You're right.
And then immediately formed the Brian Setzer Orchestra, who I have 2 of his CDs, and they're
do you?
amazing.
Huh.
They're absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I've heard that stuff. A lot of stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, I had a good run. I had a good run. I'd say
Well, that's
between
good. I'm glad you did.
1955 and let's call it 1990.
Okay. That's a decent
I
range.
will call the golden years for rock and roll.
It's funny
for me.
that you went right to 55 because that's where we're going to have. We have no choice. That's the popularity started. That's where they hit the charts,
Yeah.
And
Right.
if it was,
And the only reason I know some of that music at all is because our uncle Sal, who lived upstairs from us when we lived in Queens,
yeah.
10 years my senior and 15 yours.
Oh, he was only 10 years older than you?
He was only 10 years older than me. So I was exposed to all the music that he was listening to at the time. And so that was all 50s doo-wop. And he used to sing along. So I would hear all this stuff.
Wow.
And because, I didn't listen to the radio. I was a kid. But I heard all this music that he would play, and I heard it all. So that's why I can go back to 55 and say, yeah, oh my gosh, I remember all that stuff.
Right.
Because Uncle Sal used to listen to it.
Right. Wow. Well, thanks for that journey, Ray. That was fun.
Wasn't that a fun journey?
We went on a nice journey there, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've got a show. What do you say?
We could. You want to end it, or you want to go away and come back and do a Looney Laws?
I say we save the Looney Laws for the next show because eventually we're going to run out of Looney Laws, and that's my favorite. That's my favorite.
And that's when the show completely ends.
That's when the show ends. No.
All right.
We will find something else to make fun of.
We've been here for an hour, so this is good. We'll say goodbye. And
we'll say goodbye. And
everyone likes
if
this
you
episode.
If you were listening at home and you enjoed our
in the car, or on a boat,
or in the car, or in the boat, or wherever you listen,
or in a trunk.
Now you're getting into my area, Bill. Somebody asked me if I picked up hitchhikers, and I said, yeah, I always do. They're in my trunk right now. No, but anyway, anyway.
Oh, that's
if you learned something from our little discussion about rock and roll,
they learned that we have no idea what we're talking about.
I hope you benefited from it, from two old guys who've been around.
Yeah.
So time to say goodnight. So thanks for listening, and
good night,
be good to each other. Stop calling me Gracie.
Okay.
All right, and be good to each other out there. Okay.
Yes. Take care.
See you next time.
This is Bill, and you're listening to Pull Yourself to Pieces, the podcast, hosted on Anchor. You never heard of Anchor? Anchor by Spotify is a podcast host platform, and it's an easy way to make a podcast. We picked Anchor because they have everything we needed all in one place. You can record and edit a podcast from your computer or even right from your phone. Then you can have your podcast distributed easily to multiple platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and much more. And did I mention it's free? That's right. Anchor is free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Please check out our website, pullyourselftopieces.com.
That's right.
And you can subscribe to the show in Google and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, CastBox, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Stitcher, and YouTube, or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode.
And if you enjoy our show, don't forget to give us a high rating.
And remember to tell your friends about the show.
Thanks for listening to our show, and thank you to freesounds.org and Gottlieb, Audio Mirage, Plastabrain, Cognito Perceptu, FK Prod, Mirage Taser, Shadow Wisp, D-Boss, Viku Seru, Intra Environmental Sound Project, Julian Nicholas, Carmelo Mike, G Kill Hour, 140178 Sound, CMU Sound Design, Alan MG, Der Super Anton, Eric H2000, Bulbastray, FK Phantom, Ultra Dust, Ada Records, Stuart Colborn, Debroid, Cubidup, GJ, Syntax Seed, Inspector J, Astounded, Madge 061785, Just Invoke, Short Record, Lorenzo Sue, and I'm Mackenzie. CreativeCommons.org/licenses/by/3.0/legal code.